The pastel pink balloons bobbed gently in the afternoon breeze as I arranged the last of the gift bags on the decorated table. Sarah's backyard looked like something out of a Pinterest board. White linens, gold accents, and enough baby-themed decorations to stock a small boutique. Everything had to be perfect for my best friend's baby shower. After 3 miscarriages and 2 years of fertility treatments, Sarah deserved nothing less than magical. "Emma, you've outdone yourself," Sarah said, waddling over with her hands pressed against her lower back. At 7 months pregnant, she was glowing in that way everyone talks about, but I'd never quite believed in until I saw it on her. "I can't believe you did all this." I smiled, adjusting a centerpiece that didn't need adjusting. "You know I love any excuse to throw a party. Besides, little Olivia deserves the best welcome." Sarah's hand moved to her rounded belly, and her smile faltered for just a moment, so briefly I almost missed it. "Yeah, Olivia," she repeated, her voice oddly flat. Before I could ask what was wrong, the doorbell rang, and the first wave of guests arrived. Sarah's mom, her sister, college friends, co-workers, 30 women I'd carefully coordinated with over the past month. I'd sent invitations, organized the menu, planned games, and even hired a photographer to capture every moment. This was my gift to Sarah, the perfect baby shower she'd dreamed about for years. My husband Marcus arrived with the ice I'd forgotten, looking handsome in his navy button-down. Even after 8 years of marriage, I still felt a little flutter when I saw him. He kissed my cheek and surveyed the scene with an impressed whistle. "You really went all out," he said, but something in his tone seemed off, distant. "Sarah's worth it," I replied, watching as she opened presents across the yard. "You know how long she's wanted this." Marcus nodded, but his jaw was tight. He'd been strange lately, distracted, almost jumpy. I'd attributed it to work stress, but looking at him now, I wondered if something else was bothering him. The shower proceeded beautifully. We played the silly games, guessing baby food flavors, measuring Sarah's belly with ribbon, creating ridiculous drawings of babies while blindfolded. Sarah laughed at all the right moments, exclaimed over every gift, and posed for countless photos. But I caught her watching me sometimes with an expression I couldn't quite read, something that looked almost like guilt. Speech, someone called out as Sarah opened the last present, a gorgeous rocking chair I'd special ordered from a craftsman in Vermont. Sarah stood, one hand on her belly, the other gripping the back of a chair. The photographer positioned herself for the perfect shot as conversations died down. "I don't even know where to start," Sarah began, her voice thick with emotion. "You've all been so incredibly supportive through this journey. The doctors told me I might never—" She paused, pressing her lips together. "Well, let's just say this little miracle means everything to me." Applause filled the yard. I felt tears prick my eyes, remembering all the nights I'd held Sarah while she cried, all the negative pregnancy tests, all the hope and heartbreak. "But I especially want to thank my best friend Emma," Sarah continued, looking directly at me. "Emma, you've been there through everything. You've never given up on me, even when I gave up on myself. You planned this beautiful shower, you've been my rock, and you've loved this baby from the moment I told you I was pregnant." More applause. Sarah wiped her eyes, smiling through tears. "I just hope," she started, then stopped. "I hope someday I can be half the friend to you that you've been to me." Something cold settled in my stomach at the way she said it, but I pushed the feeling aside. This was Sarah's day. Her moment. The photographer snapped away as Sarah and I hugged, and I whispered in her ear, "You already are." But as we pulled apart, I saw something in her eyes that made that cold feeling spread. She looked away quickly, but not before I caught it. A flash of what looked like panic. The party began winding down as the sun set. Guests filtered out with their party favors, effusive in their compliments about the beautiful shower. Sarah's mom and sister stayed to help clean up while Sarah rested on the porch, her feet propped up on an ottoman. I was loading dishes into the dishwasher when Marcus appeared beside me, his face pale. "We need to go," he said quietly. "Go?" We haven't finished cleaning up. Emma, his voice was urgent now. We need to leave, now. I looked at him, really looked, and saw something I'd never seen in his eyes before. Fear. What's wrong? Marcus, you're scaring me. He glanced toward the porch where Sarah sat, then back to me. Just trust me, please. We need to go. Against my better judgment, I dried my hands and followed him outside. We said quick goodbyes, me making excuses about an early morning meeting, promising to call Sarah tomorrow. She hugged me tightly, longer than usual. Thank you for everything, Em, she whispered. I love you. I love you too, I replied. But the way she said it felt like goodbye. Marcus was quiet during the drive home, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Every time I asked what was wrong, he just shook his head and said, "Not yet." It wasn't until we were in our own driveway, the car engine ticking as it cooled, that he finally turned to me. "Emma," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "there's something you need to know about Sarah, about the baby." The cold feeling in my stomach turned to ice. "What are you talking about?" Marcus closed his eyes, and when he opened them, they were filled with a pain I didn't understand. "They lied to you," he said. And in that moment, sitting in our driveway with the scent of Sarah's flowers still clinging to my dress, I felt my world begin to tilt off its axis. I stared at Marcus in the dim light of our car, the dashboard clock reading 8:47 p.m. The words, "They lied to you," hung in the air between us like a toxic cloud. "What do you mean they lied to me?" My voice came out shakier than I intended. "Who lied? About what?" Marcus ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I'd seen him make 1,000 times when he was struggling with something difficult. But this felt different. This felt like he was about to shatter something precious. "We should go inside," he said. "No." I grabbed his arm. "Tell me now. Tell me what you mean." He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw a decade of our marriage flash through his eyes. Our wedding day, buying our first house, the fights and the makeups, the quiet Sunday mornings and the dreams we'd shared about our own family someday. "The baby," he said finally. "Sarah's baby. It's not hers." The words hit me like a physical blow. "That's impossible. I've been with her through the whole pregnancy. The ultrasounds, the doctor's appointments. Emma, listen to me." Marcus's voice was gentle but firm. "Sarah can't have children. She never could. That's ridiculous. She's 7 months pregnant. I just threw her a baby shower. I've seen her belly grow. I've felt the baby kick. The baby she's carrying isn't biologically hers." I felt like I was drowning, gasping for air that wouldn't come. "You're not making sense. Are you saying she used a surrogate? Donor eggs? I don't understand why that would be lying." "Emma." Marcus reached for my hands, but I pulled away. "The baby is yours." The world stopped, literally stopped. The sound of evening crickets, the distant hum of traffic, my own heartbeat. Everything went silent. "What did you say? The baby Sarah is carrying is your biological child?" I laughed. Actually laughed, a harsh sound that seemed to come from someone else. "That's insane, Marcus. That's not possible. I've never been pregnant. I've never had a baby. I think I would remember." But even as I said it, something cold was creeping up my spine, a memory trying to surface, like something dark rising from deep water. "2 years ago," Marcus said quietly. "Do you remember being sick? That week in March when you couldn't keep anything down?" I remembered. I'd felt awful for days, nauseous and exhausted. We'd assumed it was food poisoning or a stomach bug. "You said you were late," Marcus continued. "Your period. You took a pregnancy test." The memory hit me like a slap. I had taken a test. I'd been excited, nervous, hopeful. We'd been trying for a baby for over a year at that point. "It was negative," I said, but my voice sounded far away. "The test was negative." Was it? I tried to remember. I'd taken the test early in the morning before work. I'd waited the prescribed 3 minutes, seen one line, felt that familiar stab of disappointment. But then, "I had to leave for work," I said slowly. "I threw it away." "Sarah came over that day," Marcus said. "Remember, she was supposed to water our plants while we were at your mom's that weekend." "Sarah. My best friend Sarah, who had a key to our house." Who knew we were trying to have a baby? Who had access to our bathroom, our trash can, our lives? You're saying she took my pregnancy test? The words felt ridiculous coming out of my mouth. I'm saying she took more than that. I stared at him, my mind refusing to process what he was implying. Marcus, this is insane. You're talking about some kind of elaborate conspiracy. How could she possibly... The fertility clinic, he said. Dr. Reynolds. Sarah recommended him, remember? Said he was the best in the city. Dr. Reynolds. The fertility specialist I'd seen when we'd been trying for 18 months with no success. He'd run tests, done procedures, taken samples. He'd been thorough, professional, reassuring. I still don't understand what you're suggesting. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. It was a medical document, partially obscured, but clearly showing my name and what looked like surgical notes. Where did you get this? Sarah's purse, he said quietly. Tonight, while you were in the kitchen. Her purse was open on the counter and I saw the corner of this sticking out. I studied the document. It was from Dr. Reynolds' office, dated 2 years ago. My name was at the top, but the medical terminology was confusing. Marcus, I don't understand what this means. It means that when you went to Dr. Reynolds for fertility testing, they didn't just run tests, they harvested your eggs. The phone slipped from my hands. That's impossible. I would have known. I would have remembered the procedure, not if you were unconscious. The memory came flooding back. The appointment where Dr. Reynolds had said he needed to do a more thorough examination. The IV he'd insisted on for anxiety. The way I'd felt groggy and disoriented afterward, with Sarah picking me up because Marcus had been in meetings all day. She was there, I whispered. Sarah was there when I woke up. She was there for all of it, Marcus said. She planned all of it. I felt like I was falling through space, all my reference points dissolving. But why? Why would she do this? She's my best friend. She loves me. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was full of pain. Because she couldn't have what you have, a husband who loves her, a family, a normal life, so she decided to take yours. That's not... People don't do that. People don't steal other people's babies, don't they? Marcus asked. Think about it, Emma. Really think. How many times has Sarah inserted herself into our lives? Our marriage? How many times has she been there for every important moment, every private conversation? I thought about Sarah's constant presence in our lives. How she always seemed to know things about Marcus and me that we hadn't told her. How she'd been pushing us to try the fertility clinic. How she'd been so supportive, so understanding, so perfectly positioned to help with everything. The baby shower, I said suddenly. Tonight, the way she looked at me, the way she said goodbye. She's leaving, Marcus said. Tomorrow. I heard her on the phone with someone talking about a flight to Portland. She's going to disappear, Emma, with your baby. The reality hit me like a physical blow. Somewhere inside Sarah's body, my child was growing. My baby. The baby I'd been celebrating today, buying gifts for, planning a future around, was mine. How long have you known? I asked. Marcus looked away. I've suspected for months. But I wasn't sure until tonight, until I saw that document. Months? I felt betrayed all over again. You've known for months and didn't tell me? I hoped I was wrong. I hoped I was just being paranoid or jealous. Jealous. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. She's in love with you, Emma. Sarah is in love with you. The words hung in the air between us, another impossible thing in a night full of impossible things. That's ridiculous. Is it? Think about her relationships. How long do they last? Why do they always end? She sabotages them, Emma. Every single one. Because she doesn't want a boyfriend or a husband. She wants you. I thought about Sarah's dating history. The string of relationships that started promisingly and ended badly. How she always seemed to find fault with every man she dated. How she'd always turn to me afterward, needing comfort and support. So she stole my baby to... what? Keep me close. She stole your baby because she wants your life. She wants to be you. And if she can't be you, she wants to have something that's fundamentally biologically yours. I sat in the car, trying to process everything Marcus had told me. My best friend had stolen my eggs, somehow arranged for them to be fertilized, and was now carrying my biological child. The baby I'd been celebrating today was mine. "We have to stop her," I said. "Emma, no, we have to stop her. We have to get my baby back." Marcus took my hands, and this time I didn't pull away. "It's not that simple. Legally, she's the one who's been pregnant. She's the one with the medical records, the prenatal care, the documentation. As far as the law is concerned, it's her baby. But it's not." I was crying now, ugly sobs that shook my whole body. "It's my baby. She stole my baby." "I know," Marcus said, pulling me against his chest. "I know, sweetheart. We'll figure this out. We'll find a way." But as I sat there in his arms, I realized the woman I'd called my best friend for 15 years had betrayed me in the most fundamental way possible. She hadn't just lied to me. She'd stolen my future, my child, my biological legacy. And tomorrow she was going to disappear with my baby forever. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sarah's face, the way she'd looked at me during her speech, the guilt I'd glimpsed but dismissed. I replayed every moment of our friendship, searching for clues I'd missed, signs I should have seen. By 5 a.m., I was sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago, staring at the medical document Marcus had photographed. In the harsh fluorescent light, it looked even more damning. My name, my information, a procedure I didn't remember consenting to. Marcus found me there when he woke up, surrounded by printouts I'd made of everything we could find online about reproductive coercion, medical fraud, and parental rights. "Emma," he said gently, "you need to eat something." "I need to understand," I replied, not looking up from the papers. "I need to understand how this happened, how she did this." Marcus sat down across from me. He looked as exhausted as I felt. "I've been thinking about it all night, the timeline, the opportunities she had." I looked up at him. "Tell me, do you remember when Dr. Reynolds recommended that additional testing? The genetic screening he said was routine." I nodded slowly. The appointment had been on a Friday afternoon. I'd been nervous about the procedure, whatever it was, and Dr. Reynolds had been reassuring but vague about the details. "Sarah insisted on driving you," Marcus continued. "Said she wanted to be there for support." "I was grateful," I whispered. "You were in that big presentation with the Henderson account, and I didn't want to go alone. She was there when you checked in, when they took you back, when you woke up. She was the one who talked to the doctor afterward while you were still groggy." The memory was coming back in fragments. Sarah's concerned face hovering over me, her hand in mine as we walked slowly to her car. The way she'd insisted on staying with me for the rest of the day, making sure I was okay. "She was taking care of me," I said, but the words felt hollow now. "She was managing the situation," Marcus corrected. "Think about it. Who else but Sarah would have known about your cycle, your ovulation schedule? She's the one who helped you track it, remember? She bought you that fertility app, helped you chart your temperature." I had been so touched by Sarah's involvement in our fertility journey. She'd researched everything, connected us with Dr. Reynolds, celebrated every potential sign of pregnancy, and comforted me through every disappointment. I'd thought she was being the perfect best friend. "She was planning this," I said, the reality settling over me like a heavy blanket. "For how long? Months? Years?" Marcus pulled up something on his phone. "I did some research last night. Dr. Reynolds lost his license 3 months ago. Medical malpractice, ethical violations, operating without proper oversight." My blood ran cold. "So the eggs he harvested from me are unregulated, untracked, off the books." I thought about Sarah's pregnancy journey, how she'd been so private about her fertility treatments, how she'd switched doctors midway through, how she'd insisted on keeping certain appointments to herself. "She found a way to have the eggs fertilized and implanted," I said, "using a different doctor, probably paying cash, creating false medical records. And now she's 7 months pregnant with your biological child." The phrase hit me again like a physical blow. My biological child. The baby I dreamed about, planned for, wanted desperately, was growing inside my best friend's body. We need proof, I said. Legal proof. This document isn't enough. Marcus nodded. I called my brother last night. Tom knows medical malpractice law, and he's given me the name of someone who specializes in reproductive cases. Tom was a lawyer in Seattle, specializing in complex family law. If anyone would know how to handle this situation, it would be someone in his network. What did you tell him? Just that we needed advice about a reproductive rights case, nothing specific. I looked at the clock. 6:30 a.m. What time does Sarah's flight leave? Marcus checked his phone. I couldn't hear the whole conversation, but I think she said something about an 11 a.m. departure. 4.5 hours. 4.5 hours before Sarah disappeared with my baby forever. We have to confront her, I said. We have to make her tell us the truth. Emma, she's not going to just confess. If she's gone to these lengths, she's not going to give up easily. Then we get the proof ourselves. I was moving now, fueled by adrenaline and righteous anger. I grabbed my keys from the counter. Where are you going? To Dr. Reynolds' office. If he's lost his license, maybe his records are still there. Maybe there's evidence. Emma, wait. But I was already heading for the door. I couldn't wait. Every minute that passed was a minute closer to losing my child forever. The drive to Dr. Reynolds' office took 20 minutes in light Saturday morning traffic. The building was in a medical complex downtown, and when I arrived, I found exactly what I'd expected and hoped for. A police sign in the window, the office clearly vacant, but the security guard in the lobby recognized me. Mrs. Chen, you're here early today. I stared at him confused. I'm sorry. Your appointment isn't until 9, right? Dr. Williams is usually running a few minutes late on Saturdays anyway. Dr. Williams. I'd never heard that name before. I think there might be some confusion, I said carefully. I was a patient of Dr. Reynolds. The guard looked puzzled. Dr. Reynolds. He hasn't practiced here for months. You've been seeing Dr. Williams in Suite 403. Suite 403. Dr. Reynolds had been in Suite 401. There's been a mistake, I said. I've never seen Dr. Williams. The guard checked his computer. Says here you have a standing appointment every 2 weeks for the past 6 months. Your friend Sarah usually checks you in. My knees went weak. Sarah checks me in? Yeah, nice lady. Always very concerned about your care, asks lots of questions about your progress. I felt like I was going to be sick. What kind of progress? The guard looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, I'm not supposed to discuss medical information. Maybe you should talk to Dr. Williams directly. I took the elevator to the 4th floor in a daze. Suite 403 was a small office with a discreet sign, Dr. Michael Williams, Reproductive Endocrinology. The door was locked, but through the glass, I could see a receptionist arriving for work. I knocked, and she opened the door with a surprised expression. Mrs. Chen, you're early. Dr. Williams won't be in for another hour. I need to see my file. I said, please, it's an emergency. The receptionist, a young woman with kind eyes, looked concerned. Is everything okay? Is there a problem with the pregnancy? Pregnancy. She thought I was pregnant. I need to see my file, I repeated. All of it. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in Dr. Williams' consultation room, staring at a medical file that contained my name, my information, and a detailed record of a pregnancy I'd never known I was having. According to the file, I'd been receiving hormone treatments for the past 6 months to support a pregnancy achieved through IVF. The treatments were administered by Sarah, who was listed as my designated caregiver and had medical power of attorney. The file contained consent forms with my signature, signatures that looked like mine, but that I didn't remember signing. There were ultrasound images showing a developing fetus, blood test results tracking hormone levels, and detailed notes about my progress. But there was something else, something that made my blood run cold. The ultrasound images were dated and time-stamped, but they weren't of me. In the corner of each image was a patient ID number that didn't match the one on my chart. Sarah's patient ID number. She'd been coming to appointments, receiving prenatal care, getting ultrasounds, all under my name. She'd created a false medical history showing that I was pregnant, while she carried the baby herself. But why? What was the point of this elaborate deception? I found the answer in the last section of the file, the birth plan. According to the documents, when the baby was born, it would be recorded as born to me. Sarah would be present as my birth coach, but legally, biologically, officially, the baby would be mine. Except Sarah would be the one taking the baby home. She'd created a perfect legal framework for kidnapping. When the baby was born, she would have legal custody as the birth mother listed on the hospital records, while I would have no legal standing to claim the child because, according to these documents, I'd already given birth and transferred custody to her. My hands shook as I read the final document in the file. A private adoption agreement signed by me, giving Sarah full custody of my baby upon birth. Another signature I didn't remember making. I looked up to find Dr. Williams standing in the doorway, his face grave. "Mrs. Chen," he said quietly, "I think we need to talk." Dr. Williams was younger than I'd expected, with concerned eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He closed the door behind him and sat down across from me, his expression troubled. "Mrs. Chen, I have to ask, do you remember coming to see me?" I shook my head, still staring at the file full of documents I'd never signed, appointments I'd never made, treatments I'd never received. "That's what I was afraid of," he said quietly. "Mrs. Chen, I think you may be the victim of a very sophisticated form of medical fraud." "Tell me everything," I said. "Please." Dr. Williams pulled out a tablet and scrolled through what appeared to be his personal notes. "Your friend Sarah first contacted me about 6 months ago. She said you were pregnant through IVF, but were having severe anxiety about the pregnancy, to the point where you were dissociating and couldn't remember your appointments. I felt sick, and you believed that. She had extensive medical documentation from Dr. Reynolds showing your fertility treatments, your successful IVF procedure, and psychological evaluations indicating severe pregnancy-related trauma. She said you'd given her medical power of attorney because you trusted her to manage your care when you couldn't. But I was never pregnant. I never had IVF. According to these records, you did. And the woman who's been coming to appointments certainly appeared to be pregnant and had extensive knowledge of your medical history, your personal life, your relationship with your husband. Of course she did. Sarah knew everything about me. We'd been best friends for 15 years. She was coming to the appointments herself, I said, pretending to be me. Dr. Williams nodded. I suspected something was wrong when the blood work kept coming back inconsistent with what I was seeing during the physical exams. The hormone levels didn't match the apparent stage of pregnancy, and some of the genetic markers were unusual. What kind of genetic markers? The paternity testing we routinely do showed that while the baby was definitely related to you, the DNA also showed markers that didn't match your husband's genetic profile. My heart stopped. What do you mean? Mrs. Chen, the baby your friend is carrying is biologically yours, but Marcus isn't the father. The room spun around me. That's impossible. I'm afraid it's not. The genetic analysis shows that while you are definitely the biological mother, the father is someone else entirely. I thought about the eggs Dr. Reynolds had harvested from me 2 years ago. Could they have been fertilized with someone else's sperm? That's exactly what happened. And based on the genetic markers, I believe I know whose sperm was used. I waited, dreading the answer. The baby's biological father is Sarah's ex-boyfriend, David Mitchell. David, Sarah's ex, from 3 years ago, the relationship that had ended so badly she'd cried for months. The man she'd claimed to hate, but who she'd never quite seemed to get over. How is that possible? Sperm can be frozen and stored for years. If Sarah had access to a sample, perhaps from when they were together and considering fertility preservation, she could have arranged for it to be used to fertilize your eggs. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd thought possible. Not only had Sarah stolen my eggs and my baby, but she'd used her ex-boyfriend's sperm to create a child that was biologically mine, but not Marcus's. Dr. Williams, I need you to understand. I never consented to any of this. I never signed these documents, never agreed to this pregnancy, never gave Sarah power of attorney. This is all fraudulent. He nodded gravely. I suspected as much when the inconsistencies became too obvious to ignore. That's why I documented everything so carefully. I was planning to contact you directly, but Sarah insisted that direct contact would be harmful to your mental state. She was isolating me, I realized, making sure I never found out. Mrs. Chen, there's something else you need to know. Sarah has been in contact with a private adoption agency. She's arranged for the baby to be placed with a family in Oregon immediately after birth. The words hit me like a sledgehammer. She's giving my baby away? According to the adoption paperwork, you are the birth mother giving up parental rights. Sarah is listed as your designated representative, authorized to make all decisions on your behalf. I stared at him in horror. Sarah hadn't just stolen my baby. She'd arranged to sell my baby to strangers. Where is she now? I don't know. She missed her appointment yesterday, which was unusual. She's been very conscientious about prenatal care. I checked my phone. 8:30 a.m., 2.5 hours until her flight. Dr. Williams, I need copies of everything, all of this documentation, all the medical records, everything. Of course. Mrs. Chen, I have to ask, are you planning to involve law enforcement? Yes, absolutely, he nodded. Then you should know that I've been documenting my suspicions about this case for weeks. I have detailed notes about the inconsistencies, the unusual nature of the arrangement, and my concerns about the legitimacy of the consent forms. Thank you, I said, meaning it. Why didn't you report this yourself? I tried to, but Sarah had convinced me that you were mentally unstable, that involving authorities would trigger a psychological breakdown. She showed me what appeared to be psychiatric evaluations confirming severe dissociative episodes. More forgeries, almost certainly. Mrs. Chen, I'm going to help you in any way I can. This is the most elaborate case of reproductive coercion I've ever encountered. I left Dr. Williams' office with a thick folder of documentation and a sick feeling in my stomach. Sarah hadn't just betrayed our friendship. She'd constructed an elaborate, months-long deception designed to steal my child and give it away to strangers. But there was still time to stop her. I called Marcus from the car. I found the proof, I said. All of it. Sarah's been running appointments under my name, forging my signature, creating fake medical records. And Marcus, the baby isn't yours. Silence on the other end. Marcus, whose is it? His voice was quiet, controlled. David Mitchell, Sarah's ex. Another long pause. Emma, I need to tell you something. I know about David. What do you mean? I've known for a long time that Sarah was still in contact with him. I saw them together last year having coffee. She made me promise not to tell you. Why didn't you tell me? Because I thought she was trying to work through their relationship issues, and I didn't want to interfere. I never imagined this. I felt another layer of betrayal settle over me, not just from Sarah, but from Marcus, for keeping secrets. We'll deal with that later, I said. Right now, we need to find Sarah before she gets on that plane. I already tried calling her. Her phone goes straight to voicemail. Then we go to her house. Emma, what if she's already gone? Then we call the police, the FBI, whoever handles this kind of case. Marcus, she's kidnapping our child. My child. I could hear him thinking, weighing the implications. Our child, he said finally. Biology doesn't matter, Emma. If you're the mother, then I'm the father. That's how this works. I felt a wave of gratitude toward my husband, mixed with the crushing weight of everything we'd discovered. I'm on my way home, I said. We're going to get our baby back. But as I drove through the morning traffic, I couldn't shake the feeling that Sarah was already gone, that somewhere high above the clouds, my best friend was flying away with my child, disappearing into a new life built on lies and theft, and I might be too late to stop her. Sarah's house looked exactly as it had the day before, neat, welcoming, with the remnants of the baby shower still visible in the backyard. But her car wasn't in the driveway and the curtains were drawn tight. Marcus and I sat in our car across the street, watching for any sign of movement. It was 9:45 a.m. If Sarah really had an 11 a.m. flight, she would have left for the airport already. "We're too late," I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "Maybe not," Marcus replied, pointing toward the house. "Look." A taxi was pulling up to the curb. Sarah emerged from the front door, moving slowly with the careful gait of someone very pregnant. She was wearing dark sunglasses and a loose jacket, and she was pulling a small suitcase behind her. She was leaving. Right now, she was leaving with my baby. I was out of the car before Marcus could stop me, running across the street toward the taxi. "Sarah!" I called out. She froze, her hand on the taxi door handle. Even from a distance, I could see her shoulders tense. "Sarah, we need to talk." She turned around slowly, and when she pulled off her sunglasses, her eyes were red and swollen from crying. "Emma," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I was hoping I wouldn't have to see you again." "Were you?" I stopped a few feet away from her, Marcus coming up behind me. "Were you really hoping that? Or were you hoping you could disappear with my baby before I figured out what you'd done?" Sarah's face crumpled. "It's not what you think. It's not what I think." I pulled out the folder of medical documents from Dr. Williams's office. "It's not what I think when I have proof that you stole my eggs, forged my signature, created fake medical records, and have been pretending to be me at doctor's appointments for months." The taxi driver was watching this exchange with growing concern. "Lady, you getting in or what? I got other fares waiting." "Give us 5 minutes," Marcus said, handing him a $20 bill. "Please." The driver shrugged and leaned back in his seat, but kept the engine running. Sarah looked at the folder in my hands, then back at my face. "How long have you known?" "Since last night. Marcus overheard you on the phone and saw the document in your purse." She nodded slowly, as if this was what she'd expected. "I knew I was being careless. I was so nervous about today, about leaving, about kidnapping my child, you mean?" "It's not kidnapping." Sarah's voice rose, and she pressed a hand to her belly protectively. "This baby is mine too. I'm the one who's been carrying her, taking care of her, loving her for 7 months. With my eggs and David's sperm," I said. "Without my consent, without my knowledge." Sarah's face went pale. "You know about David?" "I know everything, Sarah. I know about Dr. Reynolds, about the eggs he harvested while I was unconscious. I know about Dr. Williams and how you've been impersonating me. I know about the adoption agency in Oregon." And at the mention of the adoption agency, Sarah's composure finally broke completely. She started sobbing, great heaving sobs that shook her whole body. "I never meant for it to go this far," she gasped between tears. "It was supposed to be simple. I was supposed to have the baby and then what? Disappear forever? Give my child to strangers? I was going to tell you," she cried. "Someday, when she was older, I was going to tell you the truth. I thought maybe we could be like sisters, raising her together." "By lying to me for the rest of my life," Marcus stepped forward. "Sarah, you need to get in our car. We need to go to the hospital, get you checked out, and figure out how to handle this legally." "No." Sarah backed toward the taxi. "I can't. You don't understand what this baby means to me." "She means everything to me too," I said. "She's my daughter." "But I'm the one who wanted her," Sarah shouted. "I'm the one who planned for her, who's been taking care of her. You were never even trying to get pregnant when I took the eggs. You'd given up." The words stung because there was a grain of truth in them. 2 years ago, Marcus and I had been struggling with infertility, and I had been starting to wonder if maybe we should consider other options. "That doesn't give you the right to steal from me," I said. "That doesn't give you the right to make that choice for me." "I made you a mother," Sarah said, her voice desperate now. "Don't you see? I gave you the thing you wanted most in the world. I made your dream come true. By taking away my choice, by lying to me, by stealing my biological material and using it without my consent. Sarah wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I love you, Emma. I've always loved you. Everything I did because I love you. This isn't love, Sarah. This is obsession. This is theft. She stared at me for a long moment, her hand still protectively covering her belly. What are you going to do? We're going to the police, Marcus said. This is reproductive coercion, medical fraud, identity theft. Wait, I interrupted, looking at Sarah's tear-streaked face. Despite everything she'd done, despite the enormous betrayal, she was still my oldest friend. The woman who'd held my hand through heartbreak, celebrated my victories, been a constant presence in my life for 15 years, and she was 7 months pregnant with my baby. Sarah, I said gently, the baby you're carrying is in danger if you get on that plane. You haven't been receiving proper prenatal care because you've been lying to your doctors. Dr. Williams is concerned about complications. What kind of complications? The blood work doesn't match what he's seeing physically. There might be problems with the pregnancy that haven't been properly diagnosed because all the medical records are falsified. Sarah's hand moved protectively over her belly. The baby is fine. I can feel her moving. She's strong. Sarah, please, come with us to the hospital. Let's make sure the baby is okay, and then we'll figure out the rest. She looked between Marcus and me, then at the taxi driver who was checking his watch impatiently. If I come with you, she said slowly, will you promise me something? What? Will you promise that I can be part of her life, even if legally she's yours? Will you let me be her aunt? Will you let me love her? I looked at this woman who had been my best friend, who had betrayed me in the most fundamental way possible, who was carrying my child. The answer should have been easy. After what she'd done, I should have wanted her out of my life forever. But as I looked at her tear-streaked face, her hand protectively covering my growing baby, I realized the situation was more complicated than simple revenge or justice. I promise, I said, that we'll figure out what's best for the baby, all of us, together. Sarah nodded slowly, then turned to the taxi driver. I'm sorry, I won't be needing the ride after all. As the taxi pulled away, Sarah looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Emma, there's something else you need to know. What? The baby? She's not healthy. My blood turned to ice. What do you mean? That's why I was leaving. That's why I was giving her up for adoption. The tests show she has a genetic condition, something serious. Marcus grabbed my arm. What kind of condition? Sarah took a shaky breath. Spina bifida, and possibly other complications. The adoptive family. They were specifically looking for a special needs child. They were prepared to handle her medical needs. I felt like the ground was falling away beneath me. My baby, the child I'd just discovered existed, the child I'd been fighting to claim, was seriously ill. How long have you known? I whispered. 3 weeks, since the last ultrasound, and you were just going to give her away, without telling me. I thought it would be easier, for everyone. You'd never know what you lost, and she'd go to a family that was prepared for her needs. I stared at Sarah, trying to process this new information. My baby was sick. My baby needed specialized medical care, and Sarah had been planning to handle this enormous decision without ever telling me I had a child at all. Get in the car, I said. We're going to the hospital now. Emma, now, Sarah. We're going to find out exactly what's wrong with my daughter, and then we're going to figure out how to help her. As we walked toward our car, Sarah grabbed my arm. Emma, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I'm so sorry. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not just the woman who had betrayed me, but the woman who had been carrying my child for 7 months, protecting her, loving her in her own twisted way. I know you are, I said, but sorry doesn't give me back the last 7 months. Sorry doesn't give me back the choice to be involved in my own pregnancy. And sorry doesn't fix what's wrong with my baby. Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face again. What happens now? Now we go to the hospital. Now we find out what my daughter needs. And then, I paused, looking at Marcus, then back at Sarah. Then we figure out how to be a family. All of us. For her sake. As we drove to the hospital, Sarah in the back seat with her hands protectively covering my baby, I realized that despite everything that had happened, despite all the lies and betrayal, there was one thing that united all three of us. We all loved the little girl who was still growing inside Sarah's body, and that love, complicated, messy, and born out of deception as it was going to have to be enough to guide us through whatever came next. The maternity ward at Cedars-Sinai was bustling with activity, but our little group sat in tense silence in the consultation room. Sarah had been examined, blood drawn, and an emergency ultrasound performed. Now we were waiting for Dr. Martinez, the perinatologist who specialized in high-risk pregnancies, to give us the results. I kept staring at the ultrasound images on the screen, grainy black and white pictures of my daughter. My daughter, who I was seeing for the first time at 7 months gestation, the baby I should have been watching grow from the very beginning. The measurements look consistent with 32 weeks gestation, Dr. Martinez said as she entered the room, her expression serious but not unkind. But I need to discuss some concerns with you. She sat down across from us, a thick folder in her hands. First, I need to understand the medical history here. Sarah, you've been receiving prenatal care from Dr. Williams, but under Emma's name. The genetic testing shows Emma is the biological mother, but you've been the one carrying the pregnancy. That's correct, Sarah said quietly. And Marcus, you're listed as the father on some documents, but the genetic testing shows David Mitchell is the biological father. Marcus nodded. We understand the situation is complicated. Dr. Martinez looked between the three of us. In 20 years of practice, I've never seen anything quite like this. But right now, my concern is for the health of the baby and the woman carrying her. She opened the folder and pulled out several images. The spina bifida Sarah mentioned is accurate, but it's not as severe as initially indicated. The neural tube defect is at the L4-L5 level, which means the baby will likely have some mobility issues and will need surgical intervention. But the prognosis for a relatively normal life is good. I felt a mixture of relief and overwhelming sadness. My baby would face challenges, but she would survive. However, Dr. Martinez continued, there are other complications we need to address immediately. What kind of complications? I asked. Sarah's blood pressure has been dangerously high for several weeks. The inconsistent medical care, the stress, and the complicated circumstances have put both her and the baby at risk for preeclampsia. Sarah's face went white. What does that mean? It means we need to deliver the baby within the next 48 hours, possibly sooner. The room fell silent. My daughter was going to be born. Now. Today or tomorrow. Is she ready? Marcus asked. At 32 weeks? The lungs look developed enough, and given the risks of continuing the pregnancy, early delivery is the safest option for both mother and baby. I looked at Sarah, who was gripping the arms of her chair so tightly her knuckles were white. Sarah, I said gently, how are you feeling about this? She looked at me with eyes full of fear and uncertainty. I'm scared, Emma. I'm scared for the baby, and I'm scared about what happens after she's born. Dr. Martinez cleared her throat. I need to ask some difficult questions about custody and decision-making authority. Legally, this situation is unprecedented. Sarah, as the birth mother, you have certain rights. Emma, as the genetic mother, you have other rights. And the circumstances under which this pregnancy occurred raise serious legal questions. What are you saying? I asked. I'm saying that when this baby is born, there are going to be immediate decisions to make about her medical care, and we need to establish who has the authority to make those decisions. Marcus pulled out his phone. I'm calling Tom. We need legal representation immediately. As Marcus stepped out to make the call, I turned to Sarah. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. She nodded. When you planned this, when you took my eggs and arranged for the fertilization, what did you think was going to happen? What was your end game? Sarah was quiet for a long moment. I thought I would have the baby and raise her as mine. I thought I could give her everything she needed, and you would never have to know. You'd go on with your life, maybe eventually have biological children with Marcus, and I'd have the family I'd always wanted. But she would have been my biological child. Didn't you think I had a right to know? I told myself that genetics didn't matter. That love was what made someone a parent, and I loved her from the moment I knew she existed. I felt the complexity of the situation settle over me like a heavy blanket. Sarah had done something unforgivable, but she had also been caring for my child for 7 months. Sarah, I need you to understand something. What you did was wrong. It was theft, fraud, and a massive violation of my autonomy, but she looked up at me hopefully. But you've been taking care of my baby. You've been loving her, protecting her, carrying her safely for 7 months. And despite everything, I'm grateful for that. Tears started flowing down Sarah's face again. I never meant to hurt you, Emma. I just wanted what you had, what I had. A husband who loved me, a stable life, the possibility of a family. Everything came so easily to you, and I was always struggling. Always alone. I thought about Sarah's dating history, her career struggles, the way she'd always seemed to be searching for something she couldn't quite find. So you decided to take mine. I decided to create something that could belong to both of us. A baby that was yours genetically but mine emotionally. I thought maybe we could raise her together somehow. Marcus returned, his face grim. Tom is flying down tonight. He says this is going to be complicated, but he has colleagues who specialize in reproductive law. Dr. Martinez stood up. I'm going to give you some time to discuss this as a family, however you define that. But I need to prepare for delivery, and I need to know who will be making medical decisions for this baby. After she left, the three of us sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, Sarah spoke. Emma, I want you to make the decisions about the birth, about her medical care, about everything. She's your daughter. Sarah, no, please, let me say this. I know I don't have the right to ask for anything, but I'm asking anyway. I'm asking if after everything there might be a place for me in her life, not as her mother, you're her mother, but as someone who loves her. I looked at Marcus, who nodded slightly. There's something you need to understand, I said to Sarah. If we do this, if we find a way to make this work, it can't be based on lies anymore. No more deception, no more manipulation. Complete honesty, always. I understand. And you need to get help, professional help. What you did isn't normal, Sarah. It's not just a mistake or bad judgment. You need to understand why you thought this was okay. Sarah nodded. I know. I've already been thinking about that. Marcus leaned forward. Sarah, I need to ask you something directly. Are there any other lies? Any other deceptions we need to know about? Sarah was quiet for a long moment. David doesn't know about the baby. I used sperm he'd stored when we were together, but he never consented to it being used. Another layer of deception. Another person who'd been victimized by Sarah's elaborate plan. He has a right to know, I said. He's the biological father. I know. I was going to tell him after I'd given the baby up for adoption. I thought it would be easier if she was already placed with a family. No more of those decisions, Marcus said firmly. From now on, all the adults involved in this situation get to make their own choices. A knock on the door interrupted us. Dr. Martinez returned with a nurse. Sarah's blood pressure is spiking, she said. We need to deliver the baby now. As they wheeled Sarah toward the delivery room, she grabbed my hand. Emma, will you be with me when she's born? I looked at this woman who had been my best friend, my betrayer, and now the person bringing my daughter into the world. Yes, I said, I'll be with you. 2 hours later, I held my daughter for the first time. She was tiny, red, and perfect, despite her medical challenges. Sarah had given birth with me holding her hand, Marcus standing beside us, and a team of medical professionals ready to provide immediate care. As I looked down at my daughter's face, my daughter, who had Sarah's nose and what looked like my eyes, I realized that our story was just beginning. We had legal battles ahead of us, difficult conversations with David, decisions about Sarah's role in our lives, and the challenge of raising a special needs child. But as I held my baby girl and watched Sarah's exhausted but peaceful face, I knew that whatever came next, we would figure it out together. Because sometimes families aren't made the way you expect them to be. Sometimes they're born out of deception and betrayal and forgiveness and love all tangled up together. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, that's enough. Epilogue. 6 months later, Maya Elizabeth Chen Mitchell is 6 months old now, and she's the most loved baby in the world. She had her spina bifida surgery at 3 months old, and while she'll face challenges as she grows, her doctors are optimistic about her development. Sarah lives in the guest house behind our property. It took months of legal proceedings, therapy sessions, and difficult conversations, but we've found a way to make it work. She's Maya's aunt, legally and emotionally, and she's getting the psychological help she needed. David, when we finally contacted him, was shocked but not angry. He's married now with a daughter of his own, and after long discussions with his wife, they've decided to be part of Maya's extended family. He visits once a month and contributes to her medical expenses. Marcus and I adopted Maya legally when she was 4 months old. Sarah voluntarily relinquished her parental rights, and David signed away his as well, with the understanding that he'd remain part of her life. It's not a traditional family structure, but it works for us. Maya will grow up knowing her story, all of it, including the complicated way she came to be. She'll know that she was wanted and loved by many people, even if that love led to some very poor decisions. As for Sarah and me, we're rebuilding our friendship slowly, carefully, with the help of a therapist who specializes in complex family dynamics. Some days are better than others. Trust, once broken so completely, doesn't heal quickly. But we're both committed to doing what's best for Maya, and that gives us a foundation to build on. Last week, Maya rolled over for the first time. Sarah was the first one to see it, and she called me over with such excitement and joy that for a moment, I forgot about everything except the miracle of my daughter reaching this milestone. Later, as we watched Maya sleep in her crib, Sarah turned to me and said, "I know I can never undo what I did, but I want you to know that every day I carried her, every moment I took care of her, I was loving her for both of us. And I realized that despite everything, the lies, the betrayal, the theft of my autonomy, Sarah had given me the greatest gift of my life. Not just my daughter, but the knowledge that love, even complicated and imperfect love, can create something beautiful if you're willing to fight for it." Maya stirred in her sleep, and both Sarah and I reached out instinctively to comfort her. Our hands touched briefly over her tiny body, and for the first time in months, it didn't feel awkward or forced. It felt like family.